I came home last Tuesday, arms full of groceries, expecting the usual quiet. Instead, Lauren's voice hit me like a freight train, high-pitched, giggling, spilling out from the kitchen. Travis is he's unreal, you know? A total king. I froze, bags slipping in my grip. Travis? That scruffy burnout from high school? I hadn't thought about him in years. But there she was, pacing with her phone, gushing like a teenager. I set the bags down, slow, trying to catch more. He's got this energy, she said. So much better than. She stopped, glanced at me, and flashed a tight smile. Hey, Han. I nodded, playing dumb. But my gut twisted. Better than who? Me? I brushed it off. Maybe she was just reminiscing. Therefore, I asked, casual as I could. Travis, huh? What's he up to these days? She waved a hand. Oh, big stuff. Investments. He's killing it. Her eyes sparkled, and I felt a pang I couldn't name. I'm no slouch. 32, decent job, shaping yards for rich folks. But I don't strut around calling myself a king. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words looped in my head. Travis. Unreal. Better. I stared at the ceiling, tracing cracks like they'd give me answers. But then I remembered something. Back in school, Travis was a nobody. A loudmouth who flunked out. No way he'd turned into some mogul. I rolled over, grabbed my phone, and scrolled old Facebook pics. There he was, 17, in a stained hoodie, smirking. Nothing alpha about him. Therefore, I started wondering, what if she was lying? Or worse, what if she believed it? The next morning, she was humming, packing a bag. Seeing Travis today, she said, breezy. Old-time sake. I nodded, sipping coffee, but my mind was already racing. I've always had an eye for details. Comes with landscaping, spotting what's off in a pattern. And something here was off. Way off. When her car pulled out, I grabbed my keys. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I knew I had to look. I tailed Lauren's blue sedan, keeping a few cars back. She'd said, coffee with Travis, so I pictured some hip downtown spot. Maybe that overpriced place with the Edison bulbs. But she didn't head downtown. She veered toward the river, where the streets get rougher, houses sparser. I frowned, gripping the wheel. This wasn't adding up. Therefore, I hung back, watching her park near a wooded lot, overgrown, littered with cans. No coffee shops here, just trees and a muddy path. She stepped out, heels sinking into the dirt, and I squinted through my windshield. Then he appeared, Travis. Not in a suit, not killing it. He shuffled out from the brush, unshaven, in a frayed jacket. My jaw dropped. This was her king? But Lauren didn't flinch. She ran to him, arms wide, like he was some long-lost hero. I killed the engine, heart pounding. Context crashed into conflict. She'd built him up like a god. But this guy looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. I grabbed my phone, zoomed in, snapped a blurry pic. They talked, her hands waving, his head low. Then she pulled out her wallet. Cash changed hands, 50s, maybe more. My stomach churned. Was she paying him? For what? I've trimmed enough hedges to know when something's hiding under the surface. This wasn't a reunion. It was something else. But then Travis barked something sharp, and she stepped back, shoulders tight. He wasn't charming her. He was bossing her around. I wanted to jump out, demand answers, but I stayed put. Needed more. Therefore, I waited till she drove off, then crept closer. His spot was a tent, half collapsed, surrounded by junk, empty bottles, a busted chair. No investments here. Just a con. I drove home, mind spinning. Lauren got back an hour later, all smiles. Travis is so inspiring, she said, kicking off her muddy heels. I nodded, forcing a grin. Yeah? Tell me more. She rambled, his business deals, his vision. But every word felt like a shovel digging her deeper. I didn't call her out. Not yet. Because when she went to shower, I checked her car's GPS. That lot wasn't a one-off. She'd been there 6 times this month. 6 visits in a month. I sat on the couch, staring at the GPS log on my phone, numbers glaring back like a taunt. Lauren was in the shower, singing off-key, oblivious. I'd always trusted her. 8 years married, no cracks till now. But this was a fault line. I'm not some paranoid guy. I shape lawns, not conspiracies, but patterns don't lie. She'd said old-time sake, yet she was sneaking off to that dump like it was routine. Therefore, I started piecing it together. Travis wasn't just a fling. He was a leech. I remembered her dad, smooth-talking guy, always chasing get-rich schemes, leaving her mom with nothing. Lauren swore she'd never fall for that again. But here she was, wallet out, eyes starry. Conflict hit hard. I wanted to shake her, ask why she'd buy his garbage. Instead, I played it cool. Next morning, she was up early, fussing with her hair. Travis again? I asked, flipping a pancake. She nodded, distracted. He's got this project. Needs my input. Input? More like cash. I smiled, flipped another. Sounds big. She left, and I grabbed my binoculars, old habit from spotting deer in clients' yards. I parked a block from the lot this time, watched her pull in. Travis was waiting, pacing, twitchy. She handed him something, a bag, maybe clothes. He grinned, all teeth, and she beamed back. But then he grabbed her arm, yanked her close. My fist clenched. She pulled away, laughing it off, but I saw the flinch. He wasn't smooth. He was desperate. I drove off before they spotted me, head buzzing. That night, she came home late, makeup smudged. Rough day, I asked casual. Yeah, Travis is intense, she said, avoiding my eyes. Intense, right? I let it drop, but my brain wouldn't quit. Therefore, I dug deeper, checked her bank app while she slept. $2,000 withdrawn in 3 weeks. No projects on her end, just cash gone. I could have confronted her then, laid it all out. But where's the proof he's nothing? I needed her to see it. So when she said Travis was coming by soon, I didn't blink. Great, I said. Can't wait to meet him. Coming by soon turned into Friday night. Lauren was a mess, ironing her dress, swapping earrings, like she was prepping for a date. I leaned on the counter, sipping beer, watching her fuss. Travis must be special, I said, keeping my tone light. She laughed, nervous. He's just, you'll see. I nodded, but my insides were coiled tight. I'd seen him, grubby, barking orders in that lot. But she still thought he hung the moon. Therefore, I decided to test it. If he was coming here, I'd let him hang himself. Friday hit, and I mowed the lawn early. Old habit clears my head. I've always liked how a clean cut reveals what's underneath, like pulling weeds to find rot. Laura didn't notice me watching her all day, texting nonstop, grinning at her phone. By dusk, headlights swung into our drive. Travis stepped out, and my beer nearly slipped. He wasn't just rough, he was a wreck. Torn jeans, a stained flannel, hair greasy under a trucker hat. But Lauren rushed out, hugging him like he'd won the lottery. Ryan, this is Travis, she chirped. I shook his hand, clammy, weak grip. Hurt a lot, I said, smiling. He smirked. All good, I hope. Conflict sparked. He swaggered in, tracking mud on my floor, acting like he owned the place. We sat for dinner, Lauren chattering about his deals. I listened, nodding, while he shoveled food like he hadn't eaten in days. So, investments, huh? I asked casual. He leaned back, smug. Real estate. Big moves. I raised a brow. Nice. Where at? He waved a hand. Around. Vague. Perfect. But then Lauren jumped in, eyes wide. He's got this waterfront thing. Huge potential. Waterfront? Like that muddy lot? I almost laughed. Therefore, I pushed a little. Sounds solid. Got a card? I could use some tips. His smirk faltered, just a flicker. Next time, he muttered. Lauren didn't catch it, but I did. After dinner, he excused himself to make a call. I watched him through the window, pacing, twitchy, no phone in sight. He wasn't calling anyone. He was casing my yard. And that's when I knew he wasn't just a liar. He was hunting. Travis lingered outside too long, kicking at my flower beds like he was sizing them up. I stood by the sink, rinsing plates, keeping one eye on him. Lauren was oblivious, humming as she cleared the table. He's so driven, she said, almost to herself. Driven? More like desperate. I'd seen guys like him, clients' brothers, cousins, always borrowing tools they never returned. But this was my house, my wife. Conflict burned. I wanted to drag him inside, demand answers. Instead, I dried my hands, slow, thinking. Context first. He'd eaten my food, worn that smug grin, but he couldn't back up a word. Therefore, I needed more than a hunch. I slipped upstairs, grabbed my phone, and pulled up the picture in the lot. Tent. Junk. No waterfront empire. Then I heard it. Lauren giggling downstairs, Travis's low voice cutting through. I crept to the landing, listened. You're the real deal, he was saying. Not like him. Him. Me. My jaw tightened. But then he kept going. Need a little help, though. Cash flows tight. She hesitated. I could hear it in her silence. I've given you a lot already, she said soft. He chuckled. Come on, babe. For us. Us? My blood went cold. I stepped back, mind racing. She wasn't just charmed. She was in deep. Therefore, I waited till he left, 11 p.m., peeling out in a rusted pickup. Lauren sighed, dreamy. He's got big plans. I nodded, forcing a smile. Sure seems like it. But the next day, I drove to that lot again. His tent was still there, now with a tarp flapping loose. I parked, walked closer. Empty beer cans, a soggy sleeping bag, and a pair of Lauren's earrings glinting in the dirt. She'd been here. A lot. Conflict hit like a brick. He wasn't just taking her money. He was pulling her into his mess. I snapped a pic, hands shaking. Back home, she was on the phone again, laughing. I stood in the doorway, watching her. She didn't see me, didn't see the storm coming. Because I wasn't just mad anymore. I was done. And when she hung up, I asked, how much you given this time? Her face went white. Lauren's face went white when I asked how much she'd given him. What? She stammered, clutching her phone. I didn't blink. Travis. How much? She laughed, shaky. You're being ridiculous. But her eyes darted. Same look she had when she'd dented my truck and blamed a tree. I'll let it drop for now. Context settled in. I'd seen this before. Her dad was a charmer too, always investing in schemes that left them eating ramen. She'd cried about it once, swore she'd never be that gullible. But here she was handing cash to a guy living in a tent. Therefore, I started connecting dots. Travis wasn't new. He'd been around in high school, sniffing after her even then. I remembered him lurking at prom, try to cut in. She'd laughed him off, or so I thought. Conflict flared. Had she been into him all along? I couldn't sleep that night, replaying her words. Better than him. Me. Next morning, she was quiet, sipping coffee, avoiding me. I waited till she left for errands, then checked her purse. Dumb move, but I was past caring. Found a receipt. $300 cash withdrawal, dated yesterday. My chest tightened. She'd lied again. Therefore, I drove to the lot, parked farther this time. His tent was quiet, but I spotted something new. A beat-up cooler with her handwriting on it. For tea. She brought him food too? I snapped a pic, hand steady now. Back home, I dug through old boxes, wedding pics, letters. Found one from her mom, years back. Watch out for dreamers, hon. They'll bleed you dry. Lauren had rolled her eyes at it then. Not now. Conflict hit harder. She wasn't just naive. She was choosing this. That night, she came home late, hair messy. Work stuff, she muttered. I nodded calm. Sure. But my mind was elsewhere. I trimmed enough overgrown yards to know. Sometimes you don't just pull weeds. You burn the roots. When she went to bed, I grabbed my phone, texted an old buddy, Mike, who's a cop. Need a favor, I wrote. Nothing big. Yet, he replied fast. Name it. I smiled. Game on. Mike texted back. Meet me at the diner. 8 a.m. I got there early, nursing black coffee, watching truckers shuffle in. He slid into the booth. All business. What's up? I laid it out. Travis, the tent, the cash. Didn't mention Lauren yet. Context first. Mike knew the river area, said it was a hot spot for drifters pulling scams. Sounds like a grifter, he said, chewing toast. You got proof. I showed him the pics, tent, earrings, cooler. He whistled. Sloppy, but enough to check him out. Conflict sparked. I could have stopped there, let Mike handle it. But Lauren's voice echoed. Better than him. No, this wasn't just about Travis anymore. Therefore, I leaned in. He's coming to my place again. Dinner. Tomorrow. Mike raised a brow. You're playing host? I shrugged. She invited him. I'm just observing. He grinned. Keep me posted. I nodded, but my plan was forming. Back home, Lauren was buzzing, planning the menu. Travis loves steak, she said like I cared. I smiled. Great. I'll grill. She didn't catch the edge of my voice. That night, I mowed the lawn. Keeps my hands busy, mind sharp. Noticed her car had fresh mud on the tires. She'd been to the lot again. Therefore, I upped the stakes. Next day, I hit the hardware store, bought a cheap security cam, small, discreet. Set it up by the porch, angled at the drive. If Travis was casing my place, I'd have him on tape. Lauren didn't notice, too busy fussing over table settings. By 6 p.m., his pickup rattled in. He strutted up, same torn jeans, but with a fresh shirt. Hers, I'd bet. "Hey, man," he said, clapping my shoulder. I gritted my teeth, flipped a steak. "Hey." Dinner was tense. Lauren gushed. Travis bragged. Same vague deals. But then he slipped. "Need a little loan," he said, winking at her. Right in front of me. My fork stopped midair. She blushed, mumbled, "We'll talk later." Conflict roared. I could have flipped the table. Instead, I smiled. "Yeah, later." Because when he left, I'd check the cam. And if Mike was right, Travis wasn't just a leech. He was a thief. I poured more wine, waiting. Travis left at 10, peeling out like he owned the night. Lauren sighed, dreamy again. "He's got such vision." I nodded, clearing plates, but my eyes were on the cam feed I'd pulled up on my phone. There he was on rewind, pacing my drive, peering into my shed. Not a call, not a smoke break. He was scoping. Context clicked. He wasn't just after her cash. He wanted my stuff too. Therefore, I decided to flip the script. No more reacting. I'd set the trap. Next morning, I called Mike. Caught him snooping on tape. I said, "Anything I can use?" He paused. "Not yet. But if he's stealing, we'll nail him. Keep eyes on." I hung up, mind racing. Lauren was at work, so I drove to town, hit the library, quiet spot, free Wi-Fi. Searched Travis online. Nothing big, just a petty theft charge for 19 dropped. Slippery, but enough to know he wasn't new at this. Conflict brewed. I could wait for him to slip, but that'd take too long. Therefore, I got creative. Printed flyers, anonymous, simple. "Beware grifter by the river. Takes cash, leaves lies." Drop them at gas stations, diners, places locals hit. If Travis had other marks, they'd talk. Back home, Lauren was humming oblivious. "Good day," I asked. She nodded. "Travis says his project's close." "Close to what?" "My shed." I smiled, said nothing. That night, she came home barefoot, fuming. "Some jerk mugged me," she said, tossing her bag down. "Took my sneakers." I raised a brow. "Where?" She waved a hand. "Near the park." Lie. The lot's nowhere near there. Conflict hit. I knew who had them. Therefore, I checked the gas station cam online. Buddy of mine runs it. Owes me a favor. Timestamp. 8 p.m. There was Travis, filling a jerry can, wearing her white Nikes. I laughed. Loud enough she poked her head in. "What's funny?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, shutting my laptop. But inside I was howling. Her king in her shoes. Perfect. I texted Mike. "He's out her sneakers." "Stole him." He replied, "Keep it coming." I leaned back, grinning. Time to tighten the noose. Lauren's barefoot rant stuck with me. "Mugged," she'd said, all dramatic like she'd fought off a gang. But those Nikes on Travis's feet? That was no mugging. Context sank in. She'd been with him, handed him something, and he'd taken more. I've seen clients lose plants to sticky-fingered neighbors. Same vibe. Travis didn't just con. He snatched. Therefore, I dug deeper. Next day, I drove to the lot, parked a half-mile out, walked in quiet. His tent was a mess, tarp flapping, trash everywhere. And there, by a stump, were her shoes, muddy but hers. He wasn't even wearing them now, just hoarding. Conflict twisted. I could grab them, shove them in her face. But that'd tip my hand. So I snapped pics left. Back home, she was on the phone, voice low. "I'll get more," she said. Hung up fast when I walked in. "Work?" I asked casual. She nodded, too quick. I let it slide, but my gut screamed, more cash, more lies. Therefore, I call Mike. He's got her shoes. Pics to prove it. He grunted. "Petty, but it's a start. Anything else?" I hesitated. "He's coming over again." "She's pushing it." Mike paused. "Set him up. I'll swing by." Perfect. That night, Lauren was giddy. "Travis needs a favor," she said, chopping onions. "Might stay late." I flipped a burger patty, nodded. "Cool." But my brain was wiring a plan. He showed up at 7, cocky as ever, wearing different shoes, ratty boots now. Dinner was loud, her laughing, him boasting. I played along, pouring wine. But then I tripped, splashed red all over his shirt. "Oh man, sorry," I said, smirking inside. He cursed, yanked it off, revealing a filthy undershirt, reeking. Lauren froze. Conflict peaked. She saw it, the grime, but said nothing. He stormed to the bathroom, muttering. I followed, casual and piqued. Her Nikes were in his bag, stuffed deep. Thief. Therefore, I texted Mike, now. Headlights flashed outside 20 minutes later. Mike knocked, all official. Got a report, stolen goods in the area. Travis, pale, grabbed his bag. Lauren stammered, what's this? I shrugged. Ask him. He bolted out the back. She turned to me, eyes wide. Travis's boots thudded out the back door, bag swinging. Mike cursed, gave chase, but I stayed put. Lauren spun on me, voice shrill. What's going on, Ryan? I leaned on the counter, sipping wine. Your king just ran from cop. Funny, huh? She blinked, mouth open, but no words came. Context hit her. I'd known more than I'd let on. But she didn't ask how. Therefore, I laughed. Not a chuckle, a full, gut-deep roar. The image of him in her Nikes, sprinting through my yard, was too much. She glared. This isn't funny. Oh, it is, I said, wiping my eyes. He stole your shoes, Lauren. Your shoes. Her face crumpled. Anger, shame, denial all at once. Conflict roared. She could have owned it, but she doubled down. You're wrong. He's got plans. I snorted. Yeah, to pawn your sneakers. Mike came back, panting. Lost him in the woods. Slippery jerk. He glanced at Lauren, then me. You good? I nodded. Never better. He left, promising to circle back. Lauren stormed upstairs, slamming the door. I sat, replaying it, Travis bolting, her lies cracking. Therefore, I grabbed my laptop, pulled up the cam footage from dinner. There he was, pre-spill, rifling my toolbox when he thought I wasn't looking. Thief, through and through. Next morning, she was quiet, packing a bag. Going to Mom's, she muttered. I didn't stop her, but I noticed her heels were gone too. Smirking, I texted Mike. Check the pawn shops. But he's got her stuff. He replied, on it. That afternoon, I drove to the lot. Tent was empty. Travis had rabbit. But her earrings were still there, glinting. I left them. Let him have his trophies. Conflict shifted. I wasn't just laughing now. I was done playing nice. Therefore, I called a locksmith, changed every lock. She'd figure it out when she got back. Then I hit the diner, met Mike. Found her heels, he said, sliding a photo. Travis, caught on camera, selling them for $20. I laughed again, louder. She's gonna love that. He grinned. What's next? I leaned back, calm. Next, she sees him for what he is. And I watch her squirm. Lauren didn't come back that night. I sipped coffee, staring at the new locks glinting on the door. She texted once, needs space, and I didn't reply. Context settled. I'd given her 8 years, trimmed our life into something neat, but she'd thrown it to a guy who'd pawn her heels for gas money. Therefore, I stopped waiting. Revenge wasn't just a thought now. It was a plan. I called Mike. Found anything else? He chuckled. Pawn shop guy ID'd him. Travis tried selling a necklace too. Hers, I'm guessing. Mike jaw tightened. That was her grandma's. Conflict burned. She'd handed him her past, and he'd cashed it. Keep digging, I said. I've got an idea. That afternoon, I drove to the lot. Tent was gone, but his trash lingered, cans, a sock, her earrings. I grabbed a stick, poked around. Found a crumpled note in her handwriting. Meet me Friday, 8. Tomorrow. Perfect. Therefore, I texted Mike. He's meeting her. River Lot, Friday night. He replied, I'll patrol. You stay clean. Clean? Sure. But I wasn't done. Back home, I pulled every photo I had, GPS logs, cam stills, pawn shop pics Mike sent. Printed them, stacked them neat. Then I hit the diner, found Sarah, Lauren's loudmouth friend who loved gossip. Hey, I said, casual, sliding her coffee. You still talk to Lauren? She nodded, curious. Yeah, why? I shrugged, just wondering what she's been up to with Travis. Her eyes lit up, jackpot. Conflict twisted. I didn't spill it all, just enough. Heard he's got some interesting habits, I said, sipping my drink. She leaned in. Like what? I smiled. Ask her. That night, my phone buzzed. Sarah, she's freaking out. Says Travis is a genius. What's the deal? I didn't answer. Let's simmer. Because Friday was coming, and I'd be there, watching. Not to stop her, just to see her face when it crashed. I mowed the lawn late, the hum steadying me. Patterns matter. Cut too deep, you ruin the roots. I wasn't ruining anything. I was clearing the way. Friday hit, and I didn't tell Lauren I knew her plans. She came home mid-afternoon, all breezy, lugging a suitcase from Mom's. "Missed you," she said, kissing my cheek. I nodded, flipping a burger on the grill. Context was thick. She thought I was still in the dark playing house. But I'd seen the note. Therefore, I upped the game. "Invite Travis over," I said, casual. "Been a while." Her eyes widened, then softened. "Really? That'd be great." She texted him, grinning. Conflict simmered. I wasn't hosting out of kindness. He rolled in at 6, same pickup, but cleaner, shaved, and a button-up. Her doing, no doubt. "Hey, man," he said, clapping my shoulder again. I gritted my teeth, handed him a beer. Dinner was loud, Lauren chattering, Travis spinning tales. "Big deals closing soon," he said, winking at her. I nodded, slicing steak. "Nice." But then I noticed her Nikes on his feet, scuffed but bold. My pulse jumped. She didn't blink, didn't care he'd stolen them. Therefore I pushed. "Those new?" I asked, pointing. He smirked. "Gift from a friend." She giggled, oblivious. Conflict spiked. I could have called it then, but I waited. Halfway through, I spilled again. Beer this time, soaking his shirt. "Ah, crap," he snapped, yanking it off. Underneath, her old college tee, faded but hers. My laugh caught in my throat. She froze, finally seeing. "Travis, where'd you?" He cut her off, gruff. "Found it." Liar. I stood, grabbed more beers, texted Mike under the table. "He's here." Wearing her stuff. Headlights flashed outside 10 minutes later. Mike knocked, calm. "Evening. Got a theft report. Shoes, clothes." Travis bolted upright, beer spilling. Lauren stammered, "What's this?" Mike glanced at me. I shrugged. "Ask your guest." He grabbed his bag, darted for the back. Mike followed, slow, like he knew he'd catch up. She turned to me, voice shaking. "You set this up?" I leaned back. He did. I just watched. She ran after him, yelling his name. I stayed put, sipping my drink. Because I'd seen the cam feed earlier, he'd swiped my drill too. And when Mike hauled him back, cuffs clicking, her face was a mask of shock. Mike dragged Travis back, wrists cuffed, her Nikes still on his feet. Lauren stood in the yard, hair wild, screaming, "This is a mistake." Travis glared, silent for once. Context crashed. She'd built into a titan, but here he was caught stealing my drill and her dignity. Therefore, I stepped outside calm. "Mistake," I said, holding up my phone, cam stills of him rifling my shed. Her mouth snapped shut. Mike nodded. "Found this in his bag," he said, tossing my drill on the grass. "And these." Her heels, red, scuffed, hit the ground next. She gasped, hands flying her face. Conflict exploded. She couldn't spin this. "Travis, tell them," she begged. He shrugged. "Pawn some stuff." "So what? So what?" Her jaw dropped. I laughed sharp. "Your king's a klepto, Lauren." Mike hauled him to the cruiser, reading rights. She spun on me, furious. "You planned this." I nodded. "You invited him." I just opened the door. She stormed inside, slamming it. Therefore, I followed slow and laid it all out. GPS logs, pics of the tent, pawn receipts. "He's a bum," I said, tossing the stack on the table. "And you fed him our life." She stared, tears welling, then snatched the papers. "You're wrong," she whispered, but her voice cracked. Conflict twisted. She wanted to believe, but the evidence was a wall. $2,000, I said. "Earrings. Necklace. Shoes. What else?" She sank into a chair, silent. I didn't push, let it sink in. Outside, Mike's lights faded. He'd texted, "Booked him. Petty theft for now." For now. I knew Travis had more dirt. Guys like him always did. Lauren stood, shaky, and grabbed her keys. "I need air," she muttered, bolting out. I didn't stop her, because I'd heard her on the phone earlier, whispering, "I'll fix this." Fix what? Him? Me? I sat, staring at the mess, steak plates, her lies, my drill back. She'd see him in cuffs soon, and I'd be here, waiting. Not for her, just for the moment she'd have to face it. I poured another drink, leaned back. The yard was quiet now, but the storm wasn't over. Laura didn't come back till dawn. I was up, sipping coffee, when her car crunched into the drive. She stumbled in, eyes red, hair a mess. "He's in jail," she said, voice flat. Context hit. She'd gone to him, probably begged the cops to let him go. But they hadn't. Therefore, I stayed cool. Yeah, Mike texted. Caught him with my drill, your stuff. She flinched, dropping her bag. He didn't mean it, she said, weak. I raised a brow. Which part? Stealing? Lying? Or wearing your shoes? Conflict flared. She glared, but her hand shook. You don't get it. He's got potential. Potential. I snorted. To pawn your grandma's necklace? Real winner. She froze, then sank onto the couch, staring at the floor. I grabbed the stack, photos, receipts, all of it, and slid across. Read it, I said. She didn't touch it, just whispered. Why are you doing this? Because you did, I shot back. 8 years, Lauren. And you picked him. Silence stretched, heavy. Therefore, I kept going. Sarah knows, too. Asked me yesterday. Said you've been bragging about him. Her head snapped up. You told her. I shrugged. Enough. She'll figure out the rest. Conflict peaked. She lunged for her phone, texting fast, probably damage control. But it was too late. I'd seen Sarah's car at the diner last night. Word was spreading. Lauren stood, pacing. I'll fix this, she said, more to herself. He'll explain. Explain? I laughed cold. He's done. And you're out of cash. She stopped, eyes wide. What? I nodded at her purse. Check your card. Overdrawn. She grabbed it, rifled through empty. Her face crumpled. Therefore, she bolted out again, tires squealing. I didn't follow. Instead, I called Mike. She's unraveling, I said. He sighed. Travis talked. Admitted he's been hitting her up for months. Small time con. Months. I hung up, staring at the yard. She'd chosen him over me, over us, for months. I grabbed a box, started packing, her clothes, her junk. Not out of spite, just clarity. When she came back, she'd find the locks changed again. And a note, he's all yours. I smirked. Let her fix that. Lauren's car rolled in at noon, slow, like she knew what was coming. I watched from the porch, box of her stuff by my feet. She stepped out, face puffy, clutching her phone. Context hit. She'd been to the station, probably saw Travis in orange, spinning more lies. But her shoulders slumped. Therefore, I met her halfway. Keys won't work, I said, tossing the new ones in my hand. Her eyes widened. Ryan, wait. I cut her off. Waited long enough. He's yours now. She stared, then at the box, her dresses, her books spilling out. Conflict crashed. She lunged for the door, but it didn't budge. You can't do this, she yelled. I shrugged. House is mine. Deed says so. She froze. Didn't know I'd check that too. Therefore, I dropped the bomb. Sarah's got pics now. Travis begging downtown, wearing your Nikes. Posted them last night. Her phone buzzed. She looked, gasped. No, I nodded. Yeah. Whole town's laughing. She sank to the steps, sobbing. I didn't flinch, because I wasn't done. That morning, I'd driven to the shelter, dropped off her fancy coats, her scarves, everything she bragged about. Told them, give it to the river folks. Travis would end up in them, one way or another. Conflict twisted. She'd see him draped in her pride, and it'd gut her. Why? She whispered. Because you chose, I said, calm. And I'm done cutting around your mess. I'd shaped yards long enough to know. Sometimes you rip it all out, start fresh. She grabbed the box, stormed to her car. You'll regret this, she spat. I smirked. Doubt it. She peeled out, and I stood there free. Therefore, I tracked Travis one last time. Shelter confirmed he'd grabbed her coat already, strutting like it was his. I laughed, picturing her face when she'd spot him. Mike called later. He's out on bail. She paid it. Of course she did. I hung up, poured a beer, sat on my clean porch. The yard looked good, neat, mind. She'd crash again, chasing him. But me? I was done. Thank you for tuning into this story. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world are you watching from right now. Let us know in the comments.